everyone! Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, we will be moving on to episode number 2 of the Learning Python series. In this episode, we will be exploring lists, and we will also learn about list indexing and some list methods. Let's get started. Now let's move on to the first topic of the day, lists. What is a list? A list is a data structure in Python that is a mutable or changeable ordered sequence of elements. Each element or value that is inside of a list is called an item. Lists are useful because they allow you to keep data organized. They also allow you to perform the same methods and operations on multiple values at once. To create a list, start off with a list's name. This is very similar to a variable. Then, add an equal sign right after the name of the list. For the value of the list, you need to type in square brackets because all of the values in the list will be stored inside those square brackets. Inside the list, you can type up any data values you want, but separated by commas. Here is an example of a list. To print out this list, you have to print it out the same way you print out a variable. You have to type in the list name inside the brackets of a print statement. So if we run this in the console, the output would be the list that we wanted to print out. Let's go back to the REPL that we created in the last episode. So first, let's start off with the name of the list. So I'm just going to name my list objects. And then you need an equal sign. And after the equal sign, you need a set of open and close square brackets. Inside the square brackets, I'm just going to put a lot of strings. So I'm just going to put like random objects like circles, houses, devices, etc. You can put how much ever items you want, just don't put like 100 because that's going to be really confusing. So here I have 3 items in my list. So now all we have to do is print out our list. So press enter, and on the next line do print and then the name of the list, which is objects. So print objects. Now when we run this code, it prints out circles, houses, and devices, and that's what was in our list. Now let's learn about list indexing. What are lists indexes? List indexes are the numerical value for all the values in a list. The first value in a list is always the 0th index. The second value is the first index, the third value is the second index, and so on. So here I created an example of a list called shapes. So the first value, which is circle, is the 0th index because as we learned over here, the first value in a list is always the 0th index. The second value, which is rectangle, is the first index. The third value, which is triangle, is the second index. And the last value, or the fourth value, which is square, is the third index. You can print out a list's value separately by printing its index in square brackets. So here you first need a list name. So in this example, it's shapes, and the index in square brackets. So shapes is the name of the list, so that means it's this list over here. And here we're accessing this 0th index. So the 0th index here is circle. So in the console, it's going to print out circle. Let's try printing out a list index in our REPL.it project. So first, let's create a simple list. I'm just going to do one about nature. So I'm going to name it nature and assign it to the values tree, flowers, and plants. So as we learned in the indexing section, tree will be the 0th index, flowers will be the first index, and plants will be the second index. So for example, if we wanted to print out plants, what we would do is print the name of the list, which is nature, and then square brackets, and inside the square brackets we want to print out the index. So if we want to print out plants, the index is the second index, so we just want to put in 2. So if we run this in the console, it's going to print out plants. Previously, we learned that lists are very useful and can organize data in many ways. But what are those ways? Those ways are something called list methods. Our first value over here is .append. So what this does is it adds a value to the end of the list. To use .append, you have to first type in the list name, then a period, and then append. So append is a keyword, just like insert, remove, pop, and sort, which we'll learn later. And then you type in a set of parentheses, and inside the parentheses, you have to type in the value that you want to insert at the end of the list. The second method is .insert. .insert is very similar to .append, but it's just a little bit different. So the difference is it adds a value to a certain index in the list. So inside the parentheses for .insert, first you have to type in the index. Separated by a comma, you type in what value you want to insert. The third method is .remove. So what this does is it removes a value from the list, and you enter the value that you want to remove over here. The fourth one is .pop. So this one is also very similar to remove, but it's just a little different. So what this does is it removes a certain index from the list. Instead of stating the value in the parentheses, you have to state the number, which index you want to remove. And lastly, we have .sort. So what this does is it sorts the list in numerical or alphabetical order. So now let's take a look at some of the list methods in our REPL.it project editor. So first, let's create a sample list. I'm just going to create a list with random letters. First, let's try .insert because that's a little tricky. So we type in the list name, letters, and then .insert. And inside the parentheses, you want to first type in the index where you want to insert it in the list and separate it by a comma, and then the value you want to insert. So let's insert it at the second index, which would be in the third spot. And let's insert E. When you print out the list, it's going to print out E in the second index, along with the original list. Let's try one of the removing values. So let's try .pop. So letters .pop, and this time let's remove E. So as we saw before, E is now at the second index. So inside the parentheses, we just type 2, which means the second index is going to be removed. And let's print out the list. So now E is removed, and now we have the original list. And lastly, let's sort this into alphabetical order. So letters.sort, and don't forget to print the list. When we run the code, now it's in alphabetical order, so A, B, C, D. Thank you all for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to hit that like button and leave a comment regarding this episode so that I'll know how to make future episodes. Also, make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you'll know when future courses are released. See you in the next video!